Welcome to Nine's coverage of the 6th World Three-Day Event Championships, which promises to be a marvellous test of both horse and rider. Adelaide, nearby Gawler, and in fact the entire state of South Australia are also being tested as thousands of overseas and interstate enthusiasts flock to Gawler for this prestigious and glamorous event. Adelaide came alive, they say, back in November last year when we staged Australia's first Formula One Grand Prix. Now, just over 6 months on and almost midway through South Australia's 150th birthday year, Adelaide is again the focal point for sports lovers across Australia and around the world. The horses are here, and their mounts from England, Ireland, France, New Zealand, Germany, Canada, and the United States are also here. They've been in various parts of the state in quarantine and training camps, trying to prepare for the vastly different conditions they will encounter on the demanding cross-country course overlooking Gawler. Designed by world-renowned course builder Neil Eyre, the cross-country circuit will come as a certain surprise to most competitors outside Australia. Most of the European courses are virtually flat, unlike the rugged up and down terrain that makes Gawler a supreme test for man and beast. It is because South Australia is 150 years old this year that Gawler was granted the right to stage this World Horse event. While Adelaide came alive for the Grand Prix, Gawler, just 45 minutes from Adelaide, has also come well and truly alive. There is mounting excitement as this glamour event of the equestrian calendar gets into full stride. The competition is split into 3 sections. Dressage, the highly technical, artistic and disciplined beginning of the championships, will take 2 days to complete due to the numbers entered for Gawler. It is during dressage that horse and rider seem as one as they meticulously perform manoeuvres before uncompromising judges who, without hesitation, will tear away entrants' chances of winning for any slight slip in the dressage arena. The highlight of the event is, of course, the cross-country. The spectacle that even those unfamiliar with equestrian goings-on marvel at, as thoroughbreds are spurred around a huge course of obstacles and tricky jumps. It is here that much of the back-breaking work has been done. The cross-country course is set over a vast area of the Gawler Hills behind the town. Builder of the Los Angeles Olympic course, Neil Eyre, has strived for and settled for nothing less than perfection. Show jumping is the final and most colourful event. Again, it will be conducted at the arena created at the Gawler Racecourse. As well as South Australian sports identity KG Cunningham, we are proud to include in the commentary team noted equestrian Captain Mark Phillips, former Australian Olympian Brian Schrapel, and former Gawler 3-day event winner Graham Barker. Captain Phillips is unable to compete due to his horse having a skin infection. The next best thing, of course, to join Channel 9's telecast, which will be beamed around the world. So settle back into your saddle as Channel 9 brings you the world's top riders in the 6th World Three-Day Event Championships.
The Australian team, very experienced, with Andrew Hoy, Wayne and Barry Roycroft, have represented Australia internationally at the Olympic Games and the World Championships, and Scott Keach has earned his place in the Australian team and his first Australian flag with some great performances over the last few years. Australia have 10 individuals, and Gillian Rolton will certainly be worth watching, along with Judy Thompson.
Mark, Great Britain, would you class them as the most experienced side?
I think probably along with the Americans. The 3 riders there that won the European Championship last year, Lorna Clark, Ian Stark and Virginia Lang, and of course Virginia is the reigning European champion, on top of winning the individual bronze at Los Angeles last year.
What about the American team now, of course, without Bruce Davison, Mark?
That'll be a great loss to them. Well, they've got Torrance Fleischmann captaining their team, and of course she won the individual 4th place at the Olympic Games in Los Angeles.
And Graham, the dark horse, they tell me, is the New Zealand team.
The New Zealand is very, very warm at this stage, Ken. And of course, they'll be led by their captain, Mark Todd, the Olympic gold medalist. We have last year's winner here at Gawler, Tim Pottinger.
And Mark, the chances of France?
Well, they're leading after this first day of dressage, and setting them on their way is Marie-Christine Jouard, who's been a regular member of their team since 1982, and the reigning French champion and a member of their silver medal team last year.
Graham, Germany?
Bronze medalists at Los Angeles, Ken, must be given a great chance. And of course, one of the veterans of the German team, Horst Carsten.
And of course, from Canada and also Ireland, the individual competitors there taking part in the World Championships.
The atmosphere is absolutely electric. Magnificent arena, beautifully set out. There are flags, there are people, all sorts of strange things. And they've just come in from outside, working in the practice area where it's reasonably calm and what they're normally used to. The horse all of a sudden walks in between the two stands and their eyes nearly pop right out of their heads.
We're seeing here the girl that probably suffered the most today from that atmosphere, Karen Stives. She won the individual silver medal in Los Angeles, but this horse, Flying Colours, really didn't settle at all today. And there she was supposed to take 6 steps back, but in fact went 7 or 8. And because she's suffering from the atmosphere, she's finding it very difficult to keep his paces regular. And again, you see his nose tucking in towards his chest. And this would have been a great disappointment today for the American team, because they were looking to great things from this young horse.
Andrew Hoy of Australia, Graham.
Yes, Ken, Andrew was expected to do well, and one of the important things in a dressage test is that the riders don't ask too much of the horse. If you ask them to do a little bit more than you would normally do outside, that can all of a sudden just completely upset the horse and they literally just lose all control.
I'd be frightened to blink, Graham.
Well, the riders get so tense, Ken, and that tension is transmitted down to an equally tense horse.
Right.
One of the problems that Andrew's having here is the horse is playing with the bit, with his tongue all the time. And you'll see the horse shaking his head as he plays with the bit with his tongue, because it's making it very difficult for Andrew to keep the thing regular and, of course, all the time losing marks.
The tension affects people in different ways. Some people just all of a sudden go completely blank and forget where they're supposed to be or what the next movement is.
It's normally because they're having a particular problem with the horse at that time, so they forget to think ahead and to think what movement's coming next.
Now the halt, and this should have been followed by a rein back, and as you can see, moves on immediately. There's the judge's bell indicating the error of course. He's looked back, realised the mistake, and now has to go back and re-perform the movement. This is very unnerving, and it can affect both horse and rider. And as you can see, swinging out into the centre of the arena, and possibly would have scored very few marks indeed for that movement.
Anne-Marie is a product of a young rider training system back home in Britain. She was a member of the team that won the gold medal from the European Championships last year, and in fact only came into the squad literally at 24 hours notice when my own horse Distinctive pulled out, and she's literally my replacement in the British squad. Having said that, dressage I think is probably the strongest phase for this horse just in time.
Well, obviously Anne-Marie is a very happy young lady, and Graham Barker asked her how she felt.
Surprised, very pleased, but I wasn't expecting to be in the lead.
Anne-Marie, you're not in the English team, why?
Because I'm very young, very inexperienced, and my horse is inexperienced, and the others have done badminton and Burley and the world champs and the Olympics, and I haven't.
You've been a former top junior. How long have you been in the senior ranks?
This is my first year in senior ranks.
Well, of course, somebody had to draw the bad luck of the day, and that happened to the Australian rider, Michael Riggs, who was caught in an absolute downpour. And Mark, this would have been very difficult for the horse and also the rider to give it their best today under those conditions.
Very, because all the way through the test, the horse is ducking and tilting his head, as you can see there, into the rein to stop the rein going into his ears. And I think everybody's heart went out to Michael, because really he had almost an impossible job on his hands.
What would be going through his mind there, Graham?
Can he be concentrating purely on the test? Of course, the weather conditions just ruined any chance he had of a good score in the dressage.
So really, in some cases, it can be the luck of the draw.
Very much so. If you get the good weather, you certainly have an advantage.
And now the horse just slipping, because once it started to rain, the arena became really very slippery. And there, poor Michael, totally unable to keep the horse straight up the centre line, at the end of his test, because all the time the horse is trying to turn into the rein. See, no way is he going to stay straight.
And what's the expression on Michael's face? I think it tells the story. And of course, from Great Britain, Virginia Lang.
Ginny's the reigning European champion. There, doing her 10-metre circle, with balance and rhythm, even strides. And her first half pass, the horse going sideways, the legs crossing over to the side of the arena. But this was a disappointing test for Ginny. She finished in 6th position and really would have hoped to have been 5 or 10 marks better.
Why was it disappointing, mate?
Well, this horse has really, in Europe, seldom been beaten in the dressage. But the atmosphere in this arena really got to him, and he was resisting and tense against Ginny all the time. You can see him just opening his mouth. And there, his extended trot. He's swishing his tail, saying,
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, and not really cooperating, resisting against Ginny rather than really cooperating with her.
Graham, there is some doubt about the fitness of Virginia Lang's horse. Is that right or not?
There has been a little bit of talk about it, Ken. However, discussing it with Mark a little earlier, he said that this is one of the characteristics of the horse. It's something that he just does all the time.
You see that he's, with his hind legs there, he's just not stepping evenly with both legs.
Right.
Now, this is a stiffness that the horse has had ever since he was a 5-year-old, and as a result of it, he always gets a bad mark for his walk, but in fact, the horse is perfectly fit.
Gee, Mark, it's incredible because the course was buzzing today that the horse was in fact lame.
Yes, but it is only in the walk.
Right.
As soon as he starts trotting again, you'll see he comes perfectly sound.
And of course, the New Zealand champion, Mark Todd. Graham, it must have been a fantastic performance.
It was. He did a very, very nice test. Of course, this is the Olympic gold medalist, and at this point of time, there was almost a packed house. The crowd had really built up considerably, with the 4 top riders coming out one after the other.
I'm afraid Mark paid the price of being the Olympic champion. All the way through his test, the cameras were whirring and buzzing, and charisma never really settled. He was always tight and tense, and Mark was never able to relax and really ask the horse for all the movement that he can give. Picture of concentration there on Mark's face, and he knows he's suffering. The arena was quite slippery, but by this stage the riders had put big studs in the horses' shoes to stop them slipping. And now Torrance's second extended canter. And when he was at Badminton last year, he changed legs just before he trotted, and there he does it again. And he will lose marks for that. And that was really his only mistake that he made through the course of his test.
Almost faultless.
And now she comes up so smooth and just onto the right leg as he comes up the centre line to the end of his test. Now the judges look for a smooth transition to halt and the horse to stand absolutely square.
He was very comfortable in the ring. He almost went to sleep a little bit. The crowds were very enthusiastic. It's funny, I think horses relate to that. I think they like to feel that. They don't want to go into a ring that is foreign to them. They like to be comfortable in a ring. And I think these crowds were very receptive to the horses in a kind way.
The rain that we've had, do you think that will affect the cross-country course?
Happily, we just walked a couple of fences now, and we've just walked them in the rain. And I was a little worried about the footing on especially some of the downhill fences. And happily, the footing they've put down yesterday is seeming to hold right now. There are a few places that I worry about the skidding of horses on it, because it's not deep. It's just very slick on top.
Mark, can you explain briefly the format of the cross-country section?
Well, the cross-country, there are 4 sections for what the horses do. They start off down on the racecourse, where they do 2 miles at a slow trot around the racecourse before going at for another 2 miles at near racing pace around the actual racetrack itself. And then they wend their way for 7.5 miles up here to the top of the hill, to the start of the cross-country, before starting the actual 4.5-mile cross-country course.
What about the rain this morning? Will it make it more difficult for the early competitors in the event?
Yes, I mean, I think all the competitors would have been were very pleased to see the sunshine first thing this morning, but the one thing they didn't want was the shower rain. We had a heavy shower rain, which has really made the top very slippery again. So those early competitors are really going to have to be very careful when they set out, and the later competitors will be just hoping we don't get another shower coming up from Adelaide.
Mark, in the teams event, of course, New Zealand lead the table there, followed by United States and Great Britain. Can you perhaps see the bigger countries taking over from New Zealand after the cross-country section?
Well, possibly, although the New Zealanders are very strong in the cross-country, and they sort of wiped the board here last year, and I know they fancy their chances, although it has to be said that the British team in particular is very experienced, and the Americans will be, not having lost Bruce Davison, that won't have done their chances a lot of good.
What about Australia?
Well, Australia, they're only 27 marks behind, and so they're definitely in touch. I mean, that's only just over one stop on the cross-country course, and having the home advantage, I think they'll fancy their chances a bit.
Terrific. Thanks, Mark. Let's now take you to our main commentary position, where Brian Schreifel and Graham Barker are your commentators.
Our first competitor, Clarissa Strawn, making her way into the starting box. The tension really starting to mount now. Brian, as a rider, what's it like when you move into that starting box?
Well, going into that starting box is the end of a very tense 10 minutes when you've been waiting, and now you're starting and running down to fence one. The nerves are gone at this stage, and you're really concentrating on the job ahead of you with the 32 fences that you have to negotiate.
7,410 metres with 32 obstacles. The horse is required to make more than 32 efforts because some of the obstacles are made up of combinations. Almost every fence right up to the maximum size of 3'11" in height, 1.2 metres, and a spread of 2 metres, 6 feet 7 inches. Clarissa safely over the first two, striding along nicely. The competitors required to complete this course in 13 minutes if they are to not incur time penalties, heading down to the West End drop, down onto the road, across the road, over the fence, onto a small landing, and down onto the course again. The gallop now across to the loading platform.
And certainly, Graham, a very daunting moment for Clarissa Strawn, being first out on this course. It's an enormous task for her to go out and prove to all the other competitors that it can be jumped and jumped well, and she's certainly got the job in front of her, being number one. A lot of other riders following her later on. They'll be watching to see where she goes, which way she takes the alternative routes at the multiple obstacles, and they will be trying to benefit from her experience as she goes down now to fences 5 and 6, the Jubilee Jays.
And already we can see the horses starting to mark the ground, so that means it's a little bit soft. The Jubilee Jays, this is one that everybody has worked out a method, which way they're going to jump it, but I've got a feeling that some of them might have changed their mind with the rain that we've had overnight. Coming in, appears as though she's going to jump the spread, jumps over the spread, will now turn right. Oh, she's really having a problem or two. Back and takes the single rail. So nicely through the Jubilee Jays, one of the obstacles that a lot of the riders have spoken about.
Yes, Graham, the straight through option, I think when the riders originally walked the course, was a very viable option to the better riders, the better horse and rider combinations. But with the rain that we've had on the downhill gradient, it's become very slippery and a great risk of incurring jumping penalties there. And as you're well aware, they mount up very quickly, and I'll be very surprised to see many attacking that way. Clarissa now coming to fences 7 and 8, the Snowy River Leap, and here again we have an alternative option, but this time I think most would be going the direct route as Clarissa is going now, in over the upright, a couple of strides on top and then a big drop fence and slides down to the river.
It'll be very interesting to see which way Clarissa takes the dead man's pass. Oh, down into the water. Oh, she's in trouble. She's gone. She's fallen. Now, that's 60 penalties. That's really, really bad luck. The penalties very severe in the cross-country. 20 penalties for the first refusal, 40 for the second, elimination for the third, and 60 for the fall of rider.
This is the obstacle number 9 on a 7.5 kilometer course that has a total of 33 obstacles, 32 obstacles on it. And it's an interesting obstacle because it has several routes that can be taken through it. Now, you have to understand that time is very important in this cross-country phase of the event, and the horses are penalized 4/10 of a point per second over the optimum time, over the perfect time, the bogey time, whatever you choose to call it. And therefore, a horse that wants to win wants to take the shortest route. Now, this obstacle offers a short route, which is difficult, and a longer route, which is easier but time-consuming.
Captain Mark Phillips joining us again. Mark, what would be going through Clarissa's mind at the moment?
Clissy's now got a very, very difficult job on her hands. That saddle will be just like sitting on a bar of soap. And all she'll be intent on now is getting round safely. You can see her knee sliding about on the saddle. Riding now very, very difficult, having got as wet as that.
And already used quite a lot of the time, 4.5 minutes up to that point.
Yes, and now she's coming to the biggest fence on the course, the brush oxer, having a right crack at it, and jumps it very easily, although she's still sliding about in the saddle. Going the fast way, which is one stride. Oh, and that is the big danger. He landed in the water, didn't know whether to take straight off again or put in a stride. As it was, hit the rail and gave Merrin no chance of staying there.
Well, 60 penalties for the fall. Merrin very quickly back in the saddle, lost a few seconds, and will incur a time penalty or two, I would think.
This is going to set hearts really fluttering back at the start. Had 2 riders, they've both gone different ways, and they've both fallen.
And another fall. Tried to go through, the horse swung round to the right, and Merrin's off. She's taken the stirrup iron and leather with her. And of course there's a refusal plus a fall at that fence, so that's 20 for the refusal and 60 for the second fall. The first of the Australians, Anne Taylor and Sir Warrabar.
And being a last-minute inclusion in the squad from Australia when we lost, unfortunately, Montego Gold. And Anne has had her horse in training as reserve and stepped in at the last minute. And she's certainly having her biggest moment right at this time. She's gone down over fence 1.
This is a very, very big fence. And she makes nothing of it that time. I suspect Merrin's reins were very wet and slippery at her first attempt, so she found it very difficult to keep the horse to the fence. No, she won't be looking forward to the big drop off these banks, with the saddle being as slippery as it is.
Taking one of the shorter approaches. She's going for the really big one. Over the tiger trap, almost in trouble.
Oh, brilliantly ridden. A great recovery, having left her legs on the first element.
It's certainly a very brave move by Merrin Hayne. I wouldn't have expected after the trouble that she'd had earlier that she would go that more difficult way, but she pulled it off very successfully as we go back to watch Clarissa Strawn now and Delphi Dazzle.
Over the fence called Early Gawler, made up of a number of the fences used in earlier competitions here at Gawler. Just a little over 11 minutes taken so far by Clarissa. And Taylor coming into the water, taking the longer course, drops in nicely, safely over the third part. Now it'll be very interesting to see which track Anne takes. Going reasonably wide. No, she's going to jump over the single rail and then up to element D. And nicely through for Anne Taylor, all clear. She obviously very pleased with the horse's efforts through there.
Clissy Strawn coming to the silo fence. Going to jump onto the Irish bank. Then I think she'll be looking to go the long way here. In fact, to do a very similar thing to what Anne Taylor did, and go up through the middle of this big parallel bar that comes after this bank. Taking it very cautiously. And there you see her going up through the middle of the parallel bar and now safely on her way. Neil Eyre has left these easy options for people on the course where there are these very big fences, so that people like Clarissa, who have been in trouble, can still manage to get round.
Clarissa safely over the West End Tavern. Almost 15 minutes has elapsed from when she left the start, so quite a few time penalties.
But I think now all she'll be thinking about is getting round safely. She knows her chance is gone. And the only thing that matters now is to complete the course so that at least the British team have got one score to count.
And number 4, Scotty Malone, is in further trouble at the Double J's. He's had one stop that we've seen. Tony Coote safely over that fence number 5 now, and he's turning on the side of this slippery hill, taking a very long route around, turning again across the side of the hill and slips badly as he turns, gets straight to the next upright and pops over, and he's negotiated those 2 obstacles now. Not without penalty, but at least he's still going. And I would think the thing that Tony would be concerned about is to get around his first start in an international event.
But now we have Derek de Grazia, the first member of the American team. And he'll be hoping to fare a lot better than Clissy Strawn and Maren Hayne did down in the water.
And certainly, Mark, as he starts out on the course, it looks as though he means business. He's not hanging about early on, and is starting to attack the course early on. It'll be interesting to see if he keeps these attacking tactics when he gets down near Dead Man's Pass.
Tony Coote coming the quick way into the water. That's the problem. He didn't come nearly fast enough. The horse tried to put in a stride, found he hadn't got room and had got no option but to stop. Oh, and oh dear, he really should have gone back a little further and given the horse a bit more opportunity to see what he had to do before coming back for his second attempt there. Mike Plum coming to the Double J's. Oh, and how brave, he's going the big way. Oh, and jumps it very well indeed. That'll give a lot of the competitors following a lot of confidence, because there was many people who thought that was too big a risk to take on. Go! And here, the first team member for Australia, Barry Roycroft, and I'm sure he's going to attack this course in the great Australian tradition of cross-country riding.
Yes, we would not be looking to see Barry do anything other than attack. He's been around Gawler, he knows the terrain here, he knows the conditions. He's got a very experienced jumper in Last Tango, and of course Barry is a very experienced jump rider. He's ridden in Olympic Games in Grand Prix show jumping in Tokyo and Montreal. So he's not one that's going to be faint of heart. He'll be having a real go. Going back then to Sasquatch and Derek de Grazia, travelling up the hill. It's a very long pull all the way up to the massive Oxer, and he's really misjudged it. He stood off a long, long way away from the big, massive Oxer spread, and you just can't afford to do that. When you've got such a big spread going uphill, you need to run him right to the bottom of it and give him every chance to get over that spread. Unfortunately for Derek, he saw a long stride and kicked off far too far away from that fence. As we go back to Barry Roycroft and Last Tango coming over the Snowy River Leap, and that wouldn't have been worrying Barry much at all. He knows how to cope with those obstacles, and making the turn to the water complex of Dead Man's Pass, it'll be interesting to see which side Barry is going to go. And he's coming on the right-hand side, the quicker route, puts in the stride on top, a stride in the water where he had more room out towards the right-hand side of the rails, quickly out of the water, up the bank and away towards the double brush opposite.
Mandy Orchard taking the longer option at the water. And my word, how lucky it was that Neil Eyre built such a wide obstacle at that third element, because Mandy very nearly missed it. Just hung on to the right rein in time to get him there. And now leaves a leg coming up the bank, out of the water, giving the horse a pat. She knows he got him out of a lot of trouble. Coming to the big brush oxer. Jumps that very easily. It's Christoph Wagner from Germany, the first member of the German team. Clear so far and making the Snowy River Leap look very easy. Now then, he's got to attack this. Oh, very nice. Very good indeed. I think the secret of this water complex is going to be for the riders to attack it. Although he too lost his back legs, hopping up the bank, but going on now safely to the brush oxer.
Mandy with the whip out over the suspended bridge.
Yes, Venture Busby just starting to look a little tired. Of course, this horse is 15 years old, and this will probably be his last major championship.
And there's Barry Roycroft sprinting for the finish, and that's a great start for Australia. That's the type of start we needed. We don't think there's any jumping penalties, and he would be over the time allowed, but not by all that much. Monbigot and Jacques Dubois for France. Oh, Mandy Orchard very awkwardly over the big spread. And Venture Busby really starting to show the pinch now. It's a long, long way.
This horse with Mandy was fourth individually in the European Championships last year, but Mandy really struggling now as she comes to the Brewery Drays. This long pull up the Gawler Hill, 400 feet, I think, taking its toll on Venture Busby. 15 years old. And I don't think he's going to jump it. Oh, he does. He tries. What a great effort. Romandian now will have to take it very quietly if she's going to get Venture Busby home. Armand Bigot, the oldest competitor in this competition, at 52. But certainly, he's 52 years. He hasn't lost any of his dash.
Oh, Mandy almost in terrible trouble at the first part of the Jubilee 150.
Yes, Venture Busby definitely came to her rescue there. I don't think she knew much about that.
Sunhill Cloud and Di Schaefer for Australia, just starting. Over the first and second, Di Schaefer from South Australia, who's ridden this course many times. Christoph Wagner for Germany. The 12-year-old bay gelding, Philip, now safely over the bus stop and the Bentley gates, heading down towards early Gawler, taking a different route, jumps in over the fallen log and is going out over the road closed. Whoa, there's a fall and a half.
Christoph Wagner, I think just showing a little bit of his inexperience there, because that suspended bridge, one of the easier fences on the course, Anne-Marie Trailer struggling to get her reins back.
Here we go, heading for dead man's pass.
Now going to attack this water fence.
Oh, she was in all sorts of bother. Got out of that well, Mark.
Just in time, brought his head up. Literally just in time to jump that third element. Anne-Marie, we're very pleased to have got away with that. And I think these riders are now starting to think that that right-hand element and the right-hand side of it is the right way to jump this water complex.
Christoph Wagner into the Gawler Gully L's. Again, playing it safe.
When riders have had a problem or a fall like Christoph has had, their heart goes out of the job a little bit, and all they're intent on then is just getting round and completing the course.
Amon having trouble getting under the tree. In fact, he's almost stuck in it. Look, barging his way through, up onto the bank.
Over the suspended bridge now. Save as much time as possible. Gets off towards the garden wall fence. Headers number 11, Australia. Headers right change.
Pico having slight navigational problems at this silo fence. He's safely on his way again now. My Ross has a think about the second element of the Snowy River drop.
Going for the short course.
Lorna showing all of her experience there. Of course, she will have talked to Chrissy Strawn, and Chrissy will have told her about the hazards of going on the left-hand side.
Trudy Boyce and Mossman from New Zealand.
Lorna will have had her heart in her mouth as she came off those banks. The back rail of that parallel bar, the third element, must have looked an awful long way away, but Myros just makes it. Just in time, coming towards the end of the course. And still clear, only visibly towering. Anne-Marie going the long way at the Gawler Gully L's. Anne-Marie Taylor, just in time, jumps the last and comes to the finish. She'll be thrilled with that. She helped the British young riders to a team gold in the European Championships last year, and now she'll be thrilled to have jumped a clear round at this, her first World Championships. Trudy Boyce, the second member of the New Zealand team. And of course, the New Zealanders will be really looking for Trudy to jump a clear round after the disasters early on of Merrin Hayne. And she's clear through that.
Getting plenty of support from the local crowd at the river jump, really appreciating the skill of both horse and rider.
Benton's Way, Gillian Rolton, just about to go into the starting box.
All the best to you.
Oh, could be in trouble. Mark was in all sorts of bother, did really well to get out of that.
Yes, Mossman was a good horse to her there.
Benton's Way, Jill Rolton on course. the Jubilee 150. Now into the 0. Got in a little bit short. Measure the stride, safely out. No problems for Myros and Lorna Clark. Gillian Rolton drops down nicely.
It was a very difficult water jump.
Oh, she's in trouble.
I think Gillian will kick herself there. She just fell forward onto the horse's neck and really didn't give him a lot of chance to jump that third element of the water jump. She'll be disappointed having collected those 20 penalties there in the water.
Taking the short course. Oh, she's in terrible trouble. Barron's down, the horse is down, both are quite okay. Completely missed the bounce.
That's going to be bad news for the American team because Derek de Gracia was also in trouble. Karen had no chance at all of staying there.
Judy Thompson and Persio for Australia, competing as an individual. Equal 13th after the dressage with 59.6 penalty points.
Judy Thompson comes from Queensland and is riding Persio. Had a very good dressage.
Melanie O'Brien onto the state banks. Over the elephant trap. Crossed the top of the second bank and got in close but got out of it nicely.
My word, Clarence was clever there. Got Melanie out of all sorts of trouble.
And the next competitor coming into
Aaron
view.
Stives and flying colours at the early Gawler fence.
Domination from the United
This
States.
a very young and inexperienced horse to be at a World Championships.
Gee, that's a nasty fall there, Mark.
Yes, it looked as though Judy Thompson hit her head on the rail of the third element, but these crash hats, especially designed to protect riders from that sort of incident. Straight into the rail, a very, very nasty fall. And here we have Melanie O'Brien and Clarence at the early Gawler fence. Clarence still keeping going and clear so far. Just James having a good look at the Snowy River drop, but safely on his way. And Andrew just winding the lucky band up a bit as he comes to the water.
Well, I know Andrew would have been having lots of thoughts and memories rushing through his mind as he came through that complex last year as he jumped into the water on Just James in the same position, although a slightly different obstacle. The horse jumped very boldly and Andrew had a fall and a ducking there last year, so he'll be pleased to be going away from there today still with dry pants.
This is in replay, Andrew Hoy going through the water.
Leaves the back leg on the third element, but Andrew does well to keep his weight out of the saddle to give Just James a chance to pull his leg off the fence. The big open water. Just James has a look at that. Andrew will be a little bit worried, and I think the way that Just James has jumped the last 2 or 3 fences, he'd be sensible now to be a little bit cautious at this State Bank complex.
He's not too.
Yes, and he's going the long way. I think that's very sensible. Just Just James, a comparatively inexperienced horse. Oh, and Andrew caught napping there. He thought James was going to go, and he just didn't. Hans Friedrich Nagel at the Jubilee fence. Still getting that bit of vocal encouragement.
Meanwhile, we watch Stewart come, and he's attacking straight onto the state banks and jumping very nicely off them too. Goes 2 strides and beautifully out over the spread on the far side.
We won't be pleased with that.
Well,
I think Ian has to admit that he's had a fall, and how very unlucky. How unlucky can you be? Jumps the parallel well and then just loses his hind legs after the fence.
Yes, he tried everything not to collect those 60 penalties, didn't he, Marcus? You're well aware if you can stay off the ground, it is possible, although already his foot has touched the ground.
And now the third member of the New Zealand team, many people's favourite to take an individual medal at these championships, Tinks Pottinger and Volunteer. Of course, Tinks won the Gawler 3-day event here last year, was first and second in the New Zealand final trial in Christchurch last year, and always goes a great gallop.
And we're very pleased to welcome him to the Channel 9 commentary box. Of course, the man who designed this course, Neil Eyre. Neil, welcome to the program, and you must be pleased with the way the course has come up.
I'm very pleased indeed, I am.
Some of these jumps are certainly taking their toll today, but obviously the slippery conditions underfoot is making it difficult for both horse and rider.
The slippery conditions are making quite a difference and virtually neutralizing several of the difficult options at the end of the course, particularly the silo banks and the Gawler Gulliels. Those are really almost no jumps at this point. They're just walking through them. The slippery going has made those big spreads involved in both of those jumps really not an option.
Neil, how long did it take you to actually design the actual jumps?
Well, I started thinking about it about 12 months ago when I came out here at the time of last year's Gawler 3-day event, and I've been working on it off and on since then.
And of course, you did design the course at Los Angeles. Is there any comparison between the two courses here at Gawler and Los Angeles?
I think this is a more difficult course and made all the more difficult by the slippery conditions underfoot. And of course, the terrain here is enormously different than what it was in Los Angeles, where we were dealing with a very flat piece of terrain. The greatest difference in elevation in the highest point and the lowest point was 6.5 meters, and here it's 120. So you're talking about hilly country here and flat country there, and that makes for a different kind of course, for sure.
Neil, what sort of things do you sort of look at when designing a course? You sort of sit down, it must take months and months of planning.
Well, it does. There are certain tests that you like to ask the horse. You like to ask him to jump verticals and spreads and go in and out of water and off banks and through bullfinches, and combinations that require the horse to extend or contract and turn sharply between elements and the like. And you try to incorporate these in obstacles that hopefully fit well in the terrain where they're designed to be built, and many other considerations. But there's a lot to think about, and you don't think of it all at once. You work over a course, you come up with an initial plan, and then I think it's fair to say that before you finish, you probably change as many as 50% of the obstacles before you end up with the final version.
Neil, you've taken a lot of trouble all around this Gawler course with the footing. We see a lot of the horses on these wood chips.
I actually wish that I had more experience with these wood chips, which are manufactured here in Australia, and if I'd known how well they were going to work out, I think I would have put more of them around the course, particularly up at the big Oxamasif, where, unless I'm mistaken, there have been 2 bad slides and falls today. I haven't been able to see it all on television. My impression is that there are several obstacles that could have benefited by the wood chips. We have been taking it out steadily to obstacle locations all day long in an effort to improve the footing. The sun is bright now, and the footing is really pretty fair right now.
There's Ian Stark and Oxford Blue safely on their way through the early Gawler fence.
Our special guest, of course, with us is the course designer here at Gawler, Neil Eyre. And Neil, it's a marvellous moment for Adelaide. Your impressions of the Gawler circuit?
Well, I like the territory around here. You're talking about the cross-country course we're looking at, my impressions of it. Well, it's a spectacular course with lots of hills and lots of terrain to design into. It's I think, the most interesting piece of terrain that I've ever had an opportunity to put a course on. It was a challenge, but it seems to have worked out quite well. There have been the problems, but there always are in the sport, and so far I think we're right on schedule.
Supersonic, a comparatively inexperienced horse, did his first advanced three-day event at Melbourne last year, but how well he's going today. Oh, brilliant.
That was really, really superb, Mark. Did that beautifully. Tinks Pottinger has been held up by the delay, just walking the horse around, waiting for the all clear to recommence the course.
I suspect that Andrew might well have been the cause of the hold-up at one of the earlier fences, because Oxford Blue has now overtaken him and got in front of him.
Tinks Pottinger just taking off once more on the cross-country. Very important round for New Zealand, and Tinks, the winner here last year, and up to this point has really gone superbly. The horse still full of running, obviously superbly fit.
Tinks has got every chance of going into the lead here. Going as fast as anybody we've seen over this latter part of the course. What a great triumph it would be for Tinks if she could take the lead in the absence of Mark Todd in New Zealand, while Mark has been in Europe. Tinks has really won everything there has been to win in New Zealand over the last couple of years. But, oh, she must be careful there, as Volunteer slips on the side of that bank, and now only one fence to go.
30 seconds, into the box.
And here comes Tinks, still full of running, into the final fence, the wine barrels. Jumps it superbly now, sprints for the finish. And that's an excellent round for Tinks Pottinger and the New Zealand team.
And that will certainly put the New Zealand team into the lead. Trudy Boyce already leading, and now Tinks probably going to take over that #1 spot. So New Zealand, we think, at this stage, holding the first two places. And there's the third member of the United States team, Karen Lendy with Lutin.
And here's Scott Keach, and Trade Commissioner. Through the start, over the first fence. A very important round for Scott Keach. Colin Irving, nicely through the state banks. Hit it beautifully.
And doesn't the crowd here love that green and gold colours of Australia, Mark?
Especially when they go as well as that. And it's surprising how the confidence of a rider can transfer itself down those reins to really give the horse that little bit extra that's needed.
So he's heading out the right way.
And Trade Commissioner, very clever there. Just slides out over that third element. Scott just lost an iron as he came out of the water, but he's got his pedals back now and going on back to the big brush oxer. Oh, and brilliantly over that. Australian cross-country riding at its very best.
Riding for Australia, riding his heart out in this cross-country international event.
Let's have a look at Scott Keach go through dead man's pass once more. It certainly was a great bit of work by the horse there, Graham.
Certainly was.
Shorter pace there.
Oh, he's in terrible trouble. Landed short. And Scotty's down. Let's hope Trade Commissioner's okay. Scotty really having a good look at the horse.
Here he comes. He just daps in a quick one. Shorter pace. Trade Commissioner goes high in an effort to make that big ditch. Just fails, and Scott has got no choice but to roll off. He'll be really disappointed now.
Colin coming down the hill towards the silo bank and the big parallel bars. Haven't seen a competitor as yet take the silo drop. Obviously everybody's considered it's a little bit difficult. And as I speak, no, he almost appears though he was going to take it. Taking the short approach up onto the big bank and jumps out over the parallel. Trade Commissioner striding along nicely. Scott sets him up. Jumps it beautifully.
What a good prospect he's going to be for the future. These World Championships will give him invaluable experience and make him a competitor to be feared by all at the Olympic Games in 2 years' time. Now just waiting to start, the reigning European champion, Virginia Leng, on Priceless. Very disappointed with her dressage yesterday, although she's individually starting in 6th place after the dressage. Oh, loses her reins and pays the penalty.
Virginia Lang and Priceless, 6th after dressage, riding for Great Britain.
Next three people actually who are starting out are very interesting because...
Oh!
What a magnificent...
Wow, what a surprise. Priceless banks the first fence, nearly ejects Ginny out of the saddle.
He's absolutely full of go. Look, he's having a little pig.
Priceless not happy, bucking and kicking and swishing his tail, a little bit like he did in the dressage yesterday. Banks it and nearly ejects Ginny out of the plate. Struggling to get her knitting back. Virginia just need to settle him down a little bit. Makes it look so easy. She turns to the water. It's in a quick one, and again. Oh yes. Very neat.
Mark Todd just preparing for his round, a very important round for New Zealand and Mark Todd. New Zealand looking pretty good at the moment with 2 horses home with good scores.
Ginny Lang and Priceless at the banks. Oh yes. Very neatly. And Ginny on her way now up the long Gawler Hill. Although Charisma here really motoring on and pulling for his head. And Mark will be worried here about the slippery going. He won't want to go too fast. Now he's got him anchored.
Playing safe.
Calm, collected. Charisma can do that all day long. How Mark would love to add this world title to the Olympic one he already has. Of course, the one place he's been very unlucky is badminton. 2nd in 1984, 2nd in 1985. And I'm sure he'll be back there again next year to try and win probably the most famous three-day event in the world. Mark not taking any chances, being as quick and as economical as he can. Attacking this. Oh, he's gone. The Olympic champion has gone. He attacked it, but Charisma just couldn't keep his feet. What a sadness that is for Mark Todd. What a sadness for New Zealand. And now again, that puts the team competition wide open.
It is in replay, the fall of Mark Todd.
Charisma just not able to get his legs up and out quick enough. He slithers over and just twists his back legs to one side in an effort to get over, and tips himself and Mark into the water.
And here's our current leader, Finvara, Torrance Flashman from the United States of America, in the lead after the dressage with 46 penalties.
And what a chance she now has of taking this world title. Leader after the dressage,
Virginia Lang.
Clears safely and heads off towards Mexico.
very easily Virginia through the early goal defence, as Mark now really attacking the state banks and easily through. Mark, having had that fall, now not wanting to waste any time at all, as Ginny sails over the suspended bridge. She sets out onto this long galloping section of the course over the flower beds.
Torrance Fleischmann at the Jubilee Jays, taking the shortest course. Did it nicely. Virginia Lang right up on top of the hill at Gawler, looking for the Brewery Drays.
I think Price is just suffering a little bit at the top of the hill. And yes, she's going for the right, on the right-hand side, so she'll be hoping that Finvara puts in a stride, and he does, and she gets away with it. Now that's the luck, the sort of luck you need to have if you're going to win a World Championship, and my word, she seems to have had it today.
Yes, well, she was leading our dressage, Mark, and she's been a good competitor for a good many years, and she would be really riding for gold now.
Have a check.
Virginia Lang just over the last fence, sprinting towards the finish.
Right, there goes the tail. And
Has a look at the watch to see what time she's taken for the cross-country course.
Here comes Hill.
Valdez having a bit of a look at the drop down into Dead Man's Pass. Taking the shorter, more difficult course. And did it nicely.
Very clever Valdez was to slither out over that third rail. Wayne smiling all over his face. That would have given him a lot of confidence.
As he gallops across now towards the West End Tavern. And safely through the tavern wall. With Wayne now coming to the state banks, and he kicks in, sails nicely over the middle element and beautifully out over the parallel bars, and Wayne certainly getting a lot of enthusiasm out of this Australian crowd.
Torrance Fleischmann. Clear up to this point and doing it nicely.
Torrance seems to be riding very sensibly. There have been times in the past where she has cracked under pressure. But so far, so good for Torrance and Finvara.
Well, very excited, Virginia Lang. Wayne Roycroft remounting, obviously having had a fall.
What a tragedy for Australia that was. Finvara going onto the gullies, but Wayne having fallen at the Bentley gates.
Time going to be the all-important thing.
So now we have for America Kim Wallens on the Grey Goose, and she's going in the early part of the course. In fact, has got around, while we've been watching the top riders, goes through now the early Gawler fences, the yard, and heading to the suspended bridge. As Torrance is discussing her round with Mike Page, the American chef de keep, and trying to work out how the times will be affected. And Fair Lady had a dressage score of 65.4 in 22nd place, and so despite how well she may go, it's very unlikely she's going to figure in the final individual placings. Safely over the brewery drays and turns downhill now. As we see an enormous recovery from the French Gardini III and Thierry Touzin in the water, although he's still going to have a refusal at the third element of the water. It will have saved 40 that he may have had added to it if it'd been a fall. But it was a very good recovery indeed as he went down in the water, and Terry kept his balance, sat still and allowed the horse to come up again. Now he's trying to conserve a little energy, takes the easy way up the bank out of the water, and now has to get his act into gear and get things mobilised for the big spread coming up at the double brush oxer.
And we have a brand new leader, as we thought, for New Zealand. Tinks Pottinger and Volunteer have no time penalties, finish the 2 days on their dressage score of 54.4. They have a huge lead of 22 marks over fellow New Zealander Trudy Boyce, with Mossman, with the young rider, the young individual rider from Great Britain, Anne-Marie Taylor, and Justin Time, lying third at this stage. Tinks, overnight, looked the all-up world champion, with Virginia Legg and Priceless 3 fences behind her. Trudy Boyce and Mossman for New Zealand in 3rd place, and young Anne-Marie Taylor from Great Britain in 4th, and Lorna Clark from Great Britain with My Ross in 5th. And then this morning, out at Roseworthy College, the horses came before the ground jury and the veterinary panel. And here we see Tinks Pottinger and Volunteer walking away from the judges. And there, Hubert Le Gravier, the president of the jury, asking her to come back and go again. And as she jogs away, Volunteer just limping ever so slightly, but enough for the vets to say that he was unable and not fit to compete in the show jumping phase this afternoon. And there, the thumbs down.
Tinks is a fantastic rider. It's a brilliant horse. Went absolutely superbly yesterday. And I mean, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even see the horse trot up, but he obviously wasn't quite right, which is very, very depressing. And I just hope she remembers yesterday and remembers that she is pretty well, as far as I'm concerned, world champion.
Yes, Venture Busby and Mandy Orchard. Venture Busby, who lost both his front shoes on the cross-country phase yesterday, and this morning his front feet were too sore to be presented to the vets. Benton's Way, who had a fall at the State Banks, and he strained his back at that fence, and so again was not presented this morning. Flying Colours and Karen Stives, who was ruled out this morning with a slightly strained shoulder muscle. A real hard luck story for Melanie O'Brien and Clarence. She rode Clarence out this morning. He was perfectly sound, but while out riding, whether he trod on a stone or whatever, nobody knows. But when she came back, he was lame, and unfortunately still lame when he went in front of the vets, and so that was the end of Melanie's chances. And then Tinks Pottinger and Volunteer, who you've seen. A great tragedy for Colin Irving and Edgehill Charlie, who went so well yesterday around that cross-country course to finish in 8th position individually. But he, unfortunately, during that round, struck into his front foot with one of his back feet, giving him a nasty cut round the edge of his coronet. And so he was out. And finally, Finvara, of course, the overnight dressage leader, who, in fact, reared up and went over backwards at the start of the cross-country yesterday, down here on the racecourse at the start of Phase A. And she was unable to present Finvara this morning. And the Grey Goose and Kim Walls, he too lost his shoes on the cross-country round yesterday and was too sore to prevent to the vets this morning. Well, the teams, I mean, Great Britain have got it absolutely on their home and dry. They've got 24 fences in hand over the French, who've got another 12 fences in hand over the Australians. And with the New Zealanders a long way back in 4th place.
The knocking down of the obstacle incurs a penalty of 5 if the horse refuses. The first time, the penalties are 10. Second refusal, the penalties are 20. If they refuse the third time, they would be eliminated. The fall of rider or horse and rider, the penalty is 30.
And there's Mark Todd.
A rueful smile from Mark Todd. Of course, the current Olympic champion. He won badminton in 1980 on his great horse Southern Comfort before being second in 1984 and 85 on Charisma.
Mark, New Zealand last night must have been on a real high.
Yeah, well, things were looking really good last night, and we were all very pleased, and but things are a lot different now.
What was the feeling like when Volunteer was vetted out this morning?
Well, we had a fair idea last night. He pulled up really good after the cross-country, but last night back at the stables he wasn't too good, and we thought it'd be touch and go whether he got through or not.
Mark, your own performance, how much extra pressure was added to you being the Olympic champion?
I don't think a great deal, no. I'm used to it now. I made a silly mistake at the water and paid dearly for it.
Clear through the combination, so just 2 fences down to Mark Todd to give him a score for the 3 days of 141.6. One life gone there. You can afford just one more, and you can hear a pin drop in this arena. The crowd hushed, willing Barry on his way.
Mark. I think every Australian spectator here sitting absolutely on the edge of their seat, wanting Barry to maintain his overnight position. Gives the parallel rail a wrap, but it stays in position as he turns to come to fence 10, the triple bar. Barry sights it up, picks right onto it and jumps it very well. Only the white gate and the treble remaining for him. Clean over the gate. Barry using all of his skill. Sets last tango up, in over the first, clear over the second, and clear out over the final element of the treble. Time is right, so there'll be no time penalties to add to his show jumping round.
Marie-Christine Jouard from France with Harley, currently in the individual 5th position and with 4 fences in hand over Australia's Barry Roycroft and Last Tango. Clear so far. Of course, both Marie-Christine and Harley, vastly experienced, members of the French team every year since 1982. Harley, 13 years old, this will be his last World Championship. And how great it could be if he could finish that career on a clear round. Yes, clear and clear for time. So she retains her 5th place.
But of course, if Lorna could go clear, she then really applies the pressure to the person in 3rd position at this stage. 19th after the dressage, did really well in the cross-country speed and endurance to only incur time penalties for a total of 84.20.
Of course, Lorna, who won the individual silver medal at the European Championships last year, in helping Britain to take that team championship. Of course, here today, France already assured of the team silver at these World Championships. In Australia, already assured of the team bronze, thanks to that marvellous round by Barry Roycroft. Of course, Great Britain in line to take out the team title at these World Championships, provided Lorna and Ginny Leng to follow her can navigate their way safely around this show jumping course. Lorna moving on, not wanting to incur any time penalties, just steadies my Ross down for the triple bar. And she'll certainly do the same thing again before turning into this gate. Lorna trying everything she knows. Vastly experienced, now 42 years old, and a proud mother. Oh, my Ross rattles the first part. Oh, Lorna grabs him in the middle, but she's clear. She's clear.
Anne-Marie in 3rd spot after the cross-country speed and endurance with penalties of 81.8. So can't afford to have a single rail down if she wishes to retain the bronze medal at this stage.
Oh, and it's gone. It's gone. So that puts her down to 4th place. Oh, and another one as well.
Well, that means she's dropped another position, Mark. Has now gone back to 5th.
That's a great sadness. I think even the other competitors will feel for Anne-Marie, because really the whole essence of this competition is the cross-country course, and what a brilliant effort she put up on that course yesterday. And nobody really likes to see a person drop right out of the positions in this show jumping phase.
Our next competitor is Trudy Boyce on Mossman from New Zealand.
Total of 97.05. 97.05.
So, Lorna Clark and Mai Ross are now guaranteed of third place, with Marie-Christine Drouard and Harley guaranteed fourth. Trudy Boyce has had her one fence down. She cannot afford another.
Can't even afford a quarter of a time penalty. Now the lead is 0.2 only. So Trudy obviously will have realised the fence is down, and that's added even more pressure to her.
You can hear cameras all around this arena clicking as she jumps every fence. The atmosphere really electric. Mossman fighting for his head. Now she's clear over those tricky planks. I think after all the bad luck that New Zealand has suffered in these championships, the crowd really behind Trudy. They'd like to see her take out this silver medal. She must steady back there now for the gate. Now just the combination to go. Trudy's heart will be absolutely in her mouth. She's going a bit quick. She's over the middle element. And the last. And she's all right for time. The silver medal is hers. Ginny Leng is even smiling and saying well done as well.
And Trudy Boyce, there she is just so pleased, the tears rolling down her face, being congratulated by the other members of the New Zealand team.
Ginny Leng, of course, the reigning European champion on this horse, and Priceless normally a very careful jumper. And what a great thing it would be for her if she could add this world title to the European title. The only person ever to have done that before is, of course, Lucinda Green, who sadly is not riding in these championships. Lucinda Green, the reigning world champion, but only for another few minutes. It was a great disappointment to both English and Australian supporters alike when Lucinda and her great Australian horse, Regal Realm, was ruled out of these championships with a leg problem back in March.
Mark, you can hear a pin drop at this arena at the moment. It's that quiet.
Yes, the crowd really loving this, and I think appreciating seeing perhaps one of the greatest three-day event riders of all time riding here in Gawler today. Ginny, who has won really everything that there is to win in the sport over the last 2 years. And just rounds it off with a beautiful clear round. It is a measure really of her superiority that Ginny's managed to win this World Championship.
Standing ovation, Mark, by the crowd here. It's marvellous.
Yes, and Ginny, I mean, she went not at her best in the dressage, not at her best in the cross-country, but still managed to win this World Championship. Being congratulated there by Ian Stark.
He really tried, didn't he?
The new world champion.
I'm going to just take him from here. I think my main concern was A, try not to go before the bell, and B, remember the course, which is sometimes a problem with me. But I fortunately did manage to remember the course, and I didn't go before the bell, and that was basically what I was trying to do, because relevant of the fact that obviously I'd had to jump clear around for the individual. I mean, team-wise, I had to complete the competition in order to keep our team ahead. So it's sort of, you know, you've got your other mates to worry about, you know, because you've got to get round and you've got to complete the course. Otherwise, your other mates aren't going to do very well. So it's a sort of double worry, I think.
And four very, very happy people. Ian Stark, Chrissy Strawn, Ginny Lane and Lorna Clark waving to the crowd. And now the French team, and how pleased they will be with their silver. Of course, Barry Roycroft being congratulated there by Prince Philip. Andrew Hoy receiving his.